Think about it. Think about it. Think about it.
Hi again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of High School Basketball Weekly. I'm Rick Bua. Tonight in studio, I've got with me Coach John Franzoni, and via Zoom, we have our longtime, my broadcast partner and longtime host of High School Basketball Weekly, Tim Morey. Thanks, everybody, for joining us, and we're going to get right down to it. We are in the later stages, we'll call it, of the MIAA tournament, boys and girls. We started with a bunch of local teams during this last week, before our last program. We've lost a few, but nevertheless, let's get right down to it. And we're going to start with the boys, and we'll just one final hooray for Coach Chris Bullitt and the McCann Hornets, who finished their season at 11-9. They were 5-5 in the league, and they went up against a pretty darn good number 25 Mystic Valley Charter from Malden School, and they were beaten pretty handily, 83-40 in the preliminary round. But I got to tell you that Coach Bullitt has got a bright future. He had Colby Marco, a senior, and a couple other seniors that were bench and role players this year. But he does have his outstanding guard and his leading scorer, Jake Howland, coming back next year. Jake's brother, Zach, coming back next year. Eric Rougeau, a sophomore, that really impressed Coach Bullitt and did a great job. He really came on strong. As from the beginning of the season to the end, and Walt Mazza. So he's got some kids that have some experience. And Tim, I know we talk about McCann every week, but they've got some kids that want to play basketball, and Coach Bullitt has got a bright future down there.
Does a great job with this squad, Rick. And as you indicated, we have followed them throughout the year, and he's got a lot to look forward to next year, no question about it. He's got experience coming back. He's a solid coach, and they're going to make noise next year in Division 5.
I really think so too. Yeah, he has the opportunity down at McCann to play his kids a little bit younger, underclass, and they get that varsity experience, which is great. We're going to move on. We're going to stay with the boys, and we're going to switch over to the number 20 seeded Drury Blue Devils, Coach Jack Rissette's squad. They defeated number 45 Pioneer Charter Science of Everett in the preliminary round at the Bucky Bullitt Gym. Ahmad David had 19 points, and Louis Gelati had 19 points and 13 rebounds. And they ran up against a very good KIPP Academy team, the number 13 seed from Lynn, and they were knocked off 62-34 in the round of 32. Ahmad David was the only Blue Devil in double figures in that ball game with 11, and that's the first game, I think, John, Louis Gelati, who was the Berkshire County leading scorer this year, was under double figures. So without seeing the game and knowing too much about it, I'm figuring there was a scheme to slow him down. It sounds like was successful.
Yeah, I'm sure that, like most teams, they focused on stopping Louis and did a great job, obviously, with that. Just can't say enough about the great job that Coach Risette did coaching his players this year and his team. We covered the games, Hoosick boys and the Hopkins games in the last week of the regular season, and two tough losses for Drury. And after those games, I wasn't sure how they would do in the Western Mass tournament, but Coach obviously got them ready to win the Western Mass tournament and then to compete and do well in the first couple rounds of the state tournament. So, hats off to Coach Risette and his team for having a great season.
Tim, you and I have talked about the Blue Devils, right from the get-go. And we talked about the backcourt, and that's something Coach Jack Risette, over in his 15 or 16-year tenure at Drury, really hasn't worried too much about. He's always had a very talented backcourt. But unfortunately, with graduation, it was just the opposite this year. He has some size. He's, Sammy Mormon will, I believe, really come into his own the next couple of years as a sophomore, played an important role. But Ahmad David and Louis Gelati, his two other bigs, were seniors. And so a little atypical for Coach Risette to have some bigs out there and not a backcourt. But what can you say?
Agreed, Rick. And I'll echo John's comment. I think this is one of the finer coaching jobs done by Coach Risette with this squad. I believe he took them as far as he could. They overachieved. Size up front but some issues in the backcourt and a lot of loss from graduation last year. They went a long way. Quite frankly, they went a lot farther than I thought they were going to go. And hats off to Coach Reset and to Drury for, I think, a good season for them. I know they're always disappointed when the season comes to a close, but they did a great job. And we also got at the end of the season a little bit of a glimpse of the future, so to speak, of that future Drury teams and that backcourt. And we saw a young man in Mr. Bond, and you can see all the ability there. And I think this is a team that is going to be heard from again in the future with that size, with Sammy Mormon and some of the other players he's got, and those young backcourt players. Watch out for Drury in the future.
Yeah, Tim, I totally agree. I think Coach Reset, as he's done in the past with some of his younger players, he's gingerly bringing up Jorge Bond, who's going to be an excellent guard at Drury High School, just an 8th grader. Got him some valuable varsity experience this year, banging with the big guys. He's a shooter, and he's going to have a great career up there. He's got 4 more years. And also, I think coming to their own as the season went on, as you said, Tim, junior Dante Dillard and sophomore Miles Beauchamp started getting some playing time, and in the absence of Nick Sacco, who was out with an injury. So, based on all that, and Sammy Mormon's going to have to be the man. He's going to have to be the big guy. So I'm sure if he works hard in the offseason, Drury will do okay next year, and Coach Reset will go back to the traditional way of having a little bit of a backcourt and looking for some size up front. But nevertheless, I agree. The Blue Devils did a fantastic job this year with a team that I thought possibly might be 500. They did a little bit better than that. And even though they didn't achieve some of the things they achieved last year, they did pick up the Class C Western Mass Championship with a couple of nice victories, in particular getting some revenge on Paulo Freire. So congratulations to Coach Reset, Coach Georgie, Coach Holmgren, and Coach Beauchamp up at Drury High School. We'll move on right now to the number 9 seed in Division 5 boys, the Hoosick Valley Hurricanes. The Hurricanes ended up with a record this season of 14-8, 7-5 in the league. They started out by defeating Granby 62-53 in the round of 32. Granby had a slight lead at halftime, but a couple of points, but the Hurricanes outscored Granby 33-22 in the second half. Frank Field had 25 to lead the way for the Hurricanes. Joey McGovern had 15, Quennell Bradley 10, and Tim, those 3 kids were the mainstay. Certainly McGovern and Field, your leaders, your juniors, but of the 9th graders, who I was impressed with all season long, Quennell Bradley easily became, at the end of the season, the number 3 scorer.
I'll echo the same thoughts with respect to Coach Robinson and his work with this squad. I know John didn't get a chance to see him that much. He saw him in the Drury game, which was a great game between these 2 squads. But when you consider what the overall roster was that Coach Robinson worked with here, he has to be. I know he won't say it, but I'm sure he's quite pleased with the way the season worked out, how it ended up. And again, another team, when you look at the fact that he's really going to have his top 6 players returning next year, albeit they're only freshmen, those 3 freshmen are going to be sophomores next year. Watch out for Hoosick Valley next year.
John, I know you admire and respect that program the coach has down there. Coach Robinson has it at Hoosick Valley, and as Tim said, just 1 senior, Ryan Holland, this year, and I don't know how many times I said it on the air doing a Hoosick game, but those 9th graders were very impressive. I know you got a chance to see them.
Yeah, that Drury game, I was really impressed with Wicks and especially Bradley. I mean, Bradley just took over the game. Every time they needed a big offensive rebound, a second shot, he was on the boards, scoring big hoops, getting big rebounds. And, anytime you play a team coached by Billy Robinson, they're going to have great defense, and they executed their game plan perfectly that night with McGovern and Field leading the way, but also with that tremendous support from those 3 freshmen. And you're right, I think, to echo what Tim said, I mean, the future is very bright for the Hoosick Valley boys team.
Maybe a little disappointing loss as the kids probably got tired and a lot of bus rides and just kind of ran out of gas a little bit. They lost to number 8 Sutton, 57-29 in the Sweet 16. Frank Field had 19 and Aiden Wicks 10. So Coach Robinson maybe tried to get one more win and get to that Elite Eight. It didn't quite work out, but he knows it. We all know it. All the fans in the Northern Berkshire area know that he's got a great program up there, and he's very high on them. We're going to conclude the boys with Coach Bob Thistle's number 22. That's right, 22, Mount Greylock Mounties. And Tim, we've been high on them all year, but they just had to do it, and they are doing it. And how many times have we said on this program they are senior oriented? They got a taste of it last year. They played the better D5 teams really tough this year, including Paulo Freire, Drury, and Hoosick Valley, all in tough losses, close games, and had one burp against Mount Everett the whole season, but ran the table again in their league. Second year in a row they went undefeated, and we'll talk a little bit about where they've been this week. But overall, Tim, your thoughts on Coach Thistle's boys?
Well, Rick, I agree with you. We talked about this team throughout the course of the year. They might be seeded number 22, but they're not a 22 seed in Division 5.
Right.
This is a team that has size. They have a backcourt. They have experience. They're a tough out. They're just going to be a tough out, and they're going to present difficulties for whoever plays them. And it's shown so far early on in this tournament. And they're a Berkshire County team. They play a tough schedule in Berkshire County. Their league, they run through the league, but they get those tough games against Drury and Monument and Hoosick Valley, and it prepares them for this kind of play. And I'm very interested to see what they do in this next game. But this is a team that doesn't surprise me that they're where they are at this point.
So just to recap the Mounties week, a young man that we don't talk about very much on this team, but is a big part of this team, is Big Judge Martin. And Judge scored 2 points in a win against Salem Academy Charter, but they were 2 free throws with 1.7 seconds left. So you want to talk about pressure. And they gave the Mounties a 57-56 win in that game. And the Big Three, they've become the Big Three, just like some of the Drury kids, some of the Hoosick boys too. Seamus Barnes led the way with 22. Senior Chase Doyle had 14, and Max McAllister and Jackson Chelsea each had 8. Then they moved on to the Elite 8 by defeating number 6 Westport, 55-52. So, Tim, that just reassures that Mount Greylock is a much better seed than that 22. Chase Doyle scored 7 of his team's 15 points in the fourth quarter, and Seamus Barnes also added 15. Jackson Chelsea gave him 10 or 11, and 10 from Max McAllister. So those 4 kids, John, were the top scorers in both those games. But this is a senior-oriented team. No surprise on how they're doing now.
Yeah, it's nice to have 7 seniors. I mean, Coach Thistle has been one of the best coaches in Berkshire County for many years now, and he's showing it in the how his team's performing in the state tournament. First, Judge Martin. I mean, to step up with 1.7 seconds left, hasn't scored a point in the game at that juncture, and to hit those 2 free throws on the road, that's tremendous. What a great accomplishment for that senior to lead his team to the next round. And then, Doyle and Barnes step up and score 15 points apiece. Seamus Barnes averaging a little under 19 in the last 2 games. I mean, to have that balanced scoring that Greylock has, they have good size, they have good guard play.
They do.
They can go as far as those players take them, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the Final Four.
So the number 22 seed Greylock Mounties will be at Holbrook on this coming Friday on the 10th in the Elite 8. So best of luck to Coach Thistle and his kids. And the player, one of the 2 players of the week, they're both going to be Greylock kids this week for the boys, ladies and gentlemen, is senior Seamus Barnes, who we've seen a couple of times this year. He's the big kid. He has not disappointed. 15 points against Westport and 22 against Salem. And he really was very consistent. And then the guard, Chase Doyle. And Tim, you and I had said on this program all year that if they could get scoring from both the backcourt and the front court, and they are, and they're getting balanced scoring. They share the basketball. Very unselfish team. Chase Doyle, 15 points against Westport. And without those kids, I don't know where they'd be, but you call a different name every night in that team. So congratulations, and best luck to Coach Thistle. He's always been so gracious as a guest here on High School Basketball Weekly. Participated up at Drury High School this year when we had our special edition live from Drury before the Drury Hoosick game, and it just shows their hard work and good for them. And we move on. If we could show the MIAA Division V boys where they stand at this time, as you can see on the left-hand side, number 1 Taconic still in it. The local team from Pittsfield. They're going to be playing Paulo Freire on Friday the 10th, and Sutton is waiting for them. So the winner of the game will play Sutton. Below that, Pioneer Valley, still in it, the number 4 seed, and they're going to be playing last year's defending champion Maynard at Pioneer. On the other end of the bracket, David Prouty, the number 2, the undefeated team, getting ready to play Pacific Rim at number 15. And then the winner of that game will play Roxbury Prep. And then, of course, Mount Greylock and Holbrook. So very, very shortly, we will be down to the 8 teams. And then in the Division 4 boys, if we get the Division 4 boys, there we go, thank you. That's pretty much cast on the left-hand side. Number 1 Wareham will play Cathedral. Number 5 Millbury will host Coach Dustin Belcher's Wacona Warriors at number 12. On the lower right, Springfield ICS, a very, very good boys team, will battle Monument Mountain. Coach Randy Colas' team will be up for that ball game. I can guarantee you they will give Springfield ICS a battle. And then you've got a couple of games still yet to play in the Sweet 16 before the Final 8. So within the next couple of days, that'll all be cast in stone, and we'll have 1 week to go. So as we move on to the girls, and we will start with the 2 teams to talk about pretty much. We, as Mount Greylock and McCann concluded their seasons, and Tim and I talked a little about them and the end of their season last week. We'll start with the number 23 seed, the Drury Blue Devils. The Blue Devils are going to end up with a 500 record at 12-12, 6-6 in their league. But you know what? They played their very best basketball, Tim, at the end of the season. You've always had high praise for Coach Downey's girls. You predicted a couple of wins recently, and maybe again some teams with the travel and just a little bit. Sometimes if you don't have it, kind of ran out of gas last night. But overall impressions of Coach Downey's girls this year, Tim.
Well, this is a team, Rick. They went through a couple periods. They started well. They had a tough patch where they had some difficulties, some injuries, and things of that sort. And they lost a bunch of games. But they righted that ship the last third of the season. They got things straightened away there. And this is a team also, and we're going to talk about this a little bit. I'm sure John will talk, Coach Ranzoni will talk about this a little bit, about Berkshire County, especially on the girls' side, which he has so much understanding of. Drury plays a tough schedule, too, in Berkshire County. And they also played a team in Springfield ICS 3 times. 3 times. And that's one of the finer teams in Division 5 throughout the state. This is a team that plays hard. Coach Downey gets them to play hard. They play good, solid defense. And that keeps them in a lot of ball games. And I think the toughness of the schedule, the competition that they face, again, not a 23 seed. They are just not a 23 seed in Division 5 in the state. I would have them much higher as a seed. I thought they were much higher. They proved it by the kind of play that they played. And I think you're right, John. I think you're right, Rick. They kind of ran out of steam at the end. A lot of travel, always on the road, and I think it caught up with them at the end. I was kind of surprised with the score last night. I thought they had a chance to win that game and or be very, very competitive in that one. And I just think, again, they had another good season. And much like we talked about with Hoosick boys, we talked about Drury boys, the future is bright there. He has the nucleus of, Coach Downey has the nucleus of a lot of really solid players coming back.
He does, Tim, absolutely. And just a quick review of Drury's week. Jacinta Felix and Lauren Davis each scored 18 points in a nice big 62-42 upset victory over number 10 Tohoto from Boylston in the round of 32. Felix scored 12 points in the fourth quarter alone. And John, the Drury girls, as Tim said, a 500 season. But they did end up winning 6 of the last 8 games. And playing your best basketball in March isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, any coach will tell you that that's what the goal is, to get better throughout the season and have your team playing their best basketball come tournament time. And clearly Coach Downey did that with the way his team finished with some quality wins, ended the regular season, getting to the finals of the Western Mass tournament, and then winning their first 2 games in the state tournament. So that's a great accomplishment for that team moving forward. And with players like Felix and Brooke Bishop coming back and some others, it's, again, another team with a very bright future.
Yeah, hopefully Megan McGrath will be a 10th grader next year. Hopefully she gets over some of her injuries. She's a very, very good athlete, and there's a lot to be said about how the Blue Devils do next year. They ended up with a loss against West Boylston, 47-27, the game Tim was just talking about in the Sweet 16. And Alyssa Russell finished her high school career scoring 8. Senior Maddie Hodling coming back. She hasn't played since 10th grade, and Jacinta Felix each had 6. So, winning 6 of the last 8 games, finishing 500. I'm sure Coach Johnny would love to have one more time Springfield International just to see what could happen, because he has battled them before and he knows his kids can do it. They just have to put it all together. As we move on to our, first of all, we'll do the player of the week. It's Jacinta Felix, the sophomore from Drury, who's really, I thought, came on in the second half of the season. She had 18 against Tohoto and had that big game and propelled her team to a 20-point win. And what I didn't mention was that was the first game this whole season that the Lady Devils scored more than 60 points a game. So they like to keep it low. It's defense all the time with them. And, she's one of our players of the week this week on High School Basketball Weekly. And we're going to move John and Tim to the Lady Hurricanes from Hoosick Valley, number 4, 19-4. And I remember doing the Drury game, Tim, with you in Cheshire very, very early in the season. I think they were 1-3 at the time. And boy, have they put a roll on over the last couple of months.
Yeah, they're clearly on a roll, and really in that span, they had some great games. They beat Wacona, they beat Amherst, another solid squad. So this team came around. Coach Frederick did a nice job with them, and they're on a roll. And they're going to be a tough out in that Division 5 tournament. No question about it. John and I did the game last night against Lennox. It was a real old-fashioned Berkshire County rock fight. Coach Franzoni, I'm sure, would agree with that. But this is a team. They're playoff experienced. And John talked about that last night. And I'll let him echo that a little bit in our review of the game against Lennox, where there were times in that game when a lot on the line, high pressure, and they just responded. They made a lot of big plays. This is a team that's been there, and you can't buy that kind of experience when you've got young ladies or young men who have been in those pressure-packed situations, and they just went about their work and again came away with the victory.
So just to review the Lady Hurricanes week, with a very huge second half, they defeated number 29 Academy of Pacific Rim. They're from Hyde Park in Boston, 55-31 in Cheshire. Taylor Garabedian led the way with 15. Emma Meswar had 9. Gabby Billets 8. And Ashley LaSure and Abby Scalaba each had 7. So that balanced scoring is what the Hurricanes have been all about the last couple of seasons. And with, again, another strong second half. In the game, Tim, you were just talking about, you and John did the other night, they defeated number 11 Lennox Millionaires, Coach Nicole Patella's girls, 45-33. That was a Western Mass Class D, finals rematch from just a couple of weeks ago. Ashlyn LaSure, the very talented sophomore guard, led the way with 12. Garabedian had 11, and Scalaba had 10. And they are going to host number 5 Georgetown. So it's going to be 5-4 this coming weekend from Cheshire. And they get by, they will be in the semifinals again. And our other girls player of the week, I felt very deserving, was Taylor Garabedian. We could give it to so many Hurricanes, but the junior, is there every night. There's no nights off for her. 15 points in the first game against the Academy of Pacific Rim, and 11 points against Lennox. And whether or not she's the top scorer or not, it doesn't really matter. She kind of sets the tone a little bit too, because she likes to penetrate. She's a hard stop driving to the rim, and she's got a nice soft jumper, and she's got a nice three ball. So, John, your takes of that Lennox, the second Lennox, second time they met within the last couple of weeks anyway.
Yeah, just a tremendous win last night for the Hurricanes. Lennox came out firing. They were shooting the three early. They were running the basketball against the Huzik pressure. They were playing some good defense, and at halftime it was a 2-point game. The third quarter really slowed down and became like Tim said, a real rock fight. It was right into the fourth quarter. The game was in doubt, but Huzik just executed down the stretch with just such efficiency. I mean, key point, we talked about it last night, was Kelly Nikotra for Lennox scores 5 points in a row, makes the score 34-32. Huzik leading. The next possession, Huzik comes down, and Abby Scalaba hits probably the biggest shot of the season for Huzik with a three to make it 37-32. Again, things slow down for another minute or two. Coach Frederick calls a key timeout with about 4 minutes left. Brings Garabedian back in the game with 4 fouls. And over the next 2 minutes, Huzik was flawless in execution. 6 points, all by Garabedian, off of great passes by Billets and Ashlyn LaSure, a couple free throws. Next thing you know, it's 44-32, and basically the game's over. So the Huzik defense was just tremendous. They really settled in after a little bit of an up and down first quarter and played tremendous half-court defense, limiting the shots that Lennox got. Every shot was contested. There was a limited on the second shot opportunities. And when you play defense like that, you can beat anybody. And I like the Huzik Valley Hurricanes' chances going into their next game against Georgetown.
So,
and Rick, if I
go
might
ahead,
just
Tim.
ask Coach to put us, I don't know how much time we have left, but I'm in New York City, but I wanted to ask Coach Franzoni put his coaching cap back on for a second. How would you defend this Huzik team? Because this is a team that's got some size, and it seems like anybody can score. They have a bunch of people that'll score from the perimeter, not necessarily great shooters, but people that will score. They'll take that shot. They're a tough team to defense.
They really are, because we've covered, I've had the good fortune of doing 3 games with you in Cheshire this year, and saw them go 2-1. The only team they lost to in the last 19 games was that Springfield ICS team we talked about, and they still battled in that game. But all 3 games that I've been able to see them play in person, they've had at least 3 players in double figures. And as a coach, we always talked about, when I coached the Drury girls, we're going to take away your first option, maybe your second option. The hard thing with Huzik is that if you take away Garabedian, then you're going to get Gabby Billets. If you try to take away LaSure, you're going to get Hannah Shea or Emma Mezwar or Abby Schlala last night, hitting some big shots and 10 points. So they have 7 or 8 players that can put the ball in the hoop, including 5 or 6 that I've seen put double digits on the board. So they are a tough team to guard because they play a very efficient half court and transition offense. They really pushed the ball aggressively last night and got some points in transition. And they do a great job of creating second shot opportunities. So they're a tough out. And again, like I said earlier, they play great defense. So they're well balanced and really poised to do well in the next few rounds of this tournament.
So let's take a look at the MIAA girls Division 5, which we're talking about right now. This one is all set to go. This is the final 8. Number 1, Millis will play Palmer, still in it. The Huzik Valley Hurricanes will have Georgetown and Cheshire. Number 3, Sutton. Number 6, Westport. And number 2, Springfield ICS, another incredibly talented young team, will play West Boylston. So if you take a look at it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Top 8 seeds in the Girls Division 4 are in it, and 5. So you've got Cathedral still there, Notre Dame and Cohasset, Tynesboro and Littleton, and Coach Liz Case. Lady Warriors at Wacona at the number 3 seed will be hosting Malden Catholic. So on our next broadcast of High School Basketball Weekly, we certainly will be talking about getting ready for the finals in Division 4 and 5. But I just want to say, best of luck to Coach Thistle, to Coach Frederick, and those are the 2 locals still in it. And of course the Monument boys and Wacona boys and girls, and still some teams. So good luck to all the Berkshire County teams. And Thanks everybody for watching High School Basketball Weekly. As always, is shown every Thursday night at 7:30, every Saturday morning at 10, and every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. on channel 1302 Northern Berkshire Television. So our thanks to Dave Fabiano and Peter Gentile, and for my co-hosts Tim Morey and Coach John Franzoni. I'm Rick Boas, and thanks again everybody. We'll see you next week on High School Basketball Weekly.
Think about it. Think about it.